is very good. Basketball 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 is very good.
Okay.
Basketball is very good.
Hello, and welcome to the Ringer NBA show. It's Group Chat! Haley's had like 46 coffee shots. It's Haley O'Shaughnessy, Jason Concepcion, Justin Verrier. In the back, Paolo, Shocker, Keith! The man, the myth, the legend. We are here. The Thunder and the Jazz just wrapped earlier. LeBron James all over the Pacers. We're going to talk about everything that happened tonight, everything that's been going on in the playoffs. I just want to take a quick sip of all the haters' tears. Take that, Thunder haters! I've been living with this all night. Justin and Jason, and to some extent Haley, although I think you're just like kind of tweaked on caffeine to this point.
It's also more pro-Donovan than anti-Russ.
Pro-Donovan than anti-Russ.
Yeah, no hate.
It's more anti-Presty than anything.
Yeah, but like it's just been like I feel like we've had this very perceptible shift in public opinion where everybody seems to just want the Thunder out of here as fast as possible. They want PG-13 out of there as fast as possible. They want Melo to be in his $28 million sarcophagus in Oklahoma City. Can you explain to me before we get to their massive victory what the sort of general turn against the Thunder is?
I think just pure luck is what ended up happening. No, I mean, first of all, Melo was not playing in the game, and that seemed to spark a little bit of something with this Thunder team. And then obviously Russ was just unconscious. We were talking about this before we went on. Seemed like the Jazz were playing pretty sound defense.
Yeah.
And as someone who is a Sixers fan, Chris Ryan,
yeah, sure.
you would be able to appreciate process over results. I think it's just the case where Russ hit a bunch of mid-range jumpers, and that really is, you just got to tip your hat to him.
They were down 25 and they didn't quit, which you have to admire because that looked like.
It's always good to not quit.
Well, there was a moment there where
How important was this game?
It was probably, I would say, of the games that have been played so far, the most important one this season. Jason, do you feel like the Thunder are somehow become like the kicking, like they're just getting kicked around a lot by NBA fans? Or is that just like a basketball Twitter thing, and it's actually like for the most part people still love Russ and people want to see the Thunder more than they want to watch?
I think a lot of it is just like the natural life cycle of NBA player. You know, when a player is younger and the stakes are lower, it's just a lot of fun. I think Chris Paul is a great example of this. Of like, hey, point guard, we love him, he's great, and then it's all of a sudden he's a joke and he never got to the conference finals.
right.
Get this guy out of here. I think with Russ, it's a similar dynamic at play. He's one of the most exciting players, if not the most exciting player in the league. The athleticism is thrilling. His will to win is like truly inspiring. And at the same time, like, you've got to balance that with the reality that it's
better.
like he's just a hard fit with a winning basketball team at the highest level.
Yeah, I would say two things. I think it's the old analytics versus the traditional sort of way of looking at the league playing out again. But also, Russ is a lightning rod. He's like, sometimes he's a jerk. And when he's not a jerk and you're on the opposite side of that, he's just a very loud personality. So he's going to be divisive for that reason.
But you can have, I mean, you can do the whole advanced analytics thing and his usage rate and everything. But also, we've seen before how he just kind of like stops at the perimeter after he gives the ball up. And that's very much like just the eye test.
45, 15 boards, and 7 assists tonight. Don't you think also, like, that? I think you were talking to me about this earlier, about where it's like, part of it is like, rather than giving the Jazz the credit and some of the players on the Jazz like Ricky and Donovan, the credit that they deserve, we're like more obsessed with how they've put together the wrong pieces on the Thunder.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that the whole thing about Melo was like nobody really thought that he would fit there in the first place.
Yeah.
And then, you know, he had all the heat about like, I'm not going to come off the bench, and then it wasn't really working out. Nobody thinks that the team is controllable. And so I think it's just everyone thought that the pieces weren't going to fit in the first place. Also, they had so much pressure, and they still do, about Paul George staying because they obviously, like, a first round out is not going to impress him.
I was, you know, I thought that they would come back pretty early, although I thought that they were dead for a while. But then I thought that looked like they just had a little bit of momentum, and it was way too early. Right. And when Gobert got in foul trouble, obviously Gobert is this series. He stops, Danny wrote about this, Gobert stops everything the Thunder want to do, which is that relentless push towards the basket and then kicking it out to shooters.
Right, and he was out for how long during that run?
Most of it. Right. But I think that a lot of it has to do with Russ is sort of carrying the water for the mistakes of the franchise itself. So whether it's Harden, whether it's Durant walking, whether it's Presti gilding the lily a little bit for getting Melo when he, you know, and on it, like, would you rather have Enes Kanter or Melo right now? That's like a legitimate question. Enes Kanter was there, so he would obviously rather be back.
They
the way Jeremy Grant is playing in this series.
They have Enes Kanter spiritually. In his heart, Enes Kanter will always be a Thunder.
Honestly, that's the best part about Enes Kanter.
Right, that's all they had of him last series when they couldn't play him. So this isn't all that different.
Right. So, by the way, if you guys have any questions, if you have any feelings about the Thunder and Russell and how we're not talking enough about the Jazz and whether or not the Thunder are still in the series and LeBron and the Sixers and the Celtics and the Wizards and the Raptors, we probably won't be talking about. Hit us up, #RingerNBA for questions, comments, and constructive feedback.
I love how you listed the Raptors last.
I know.
Well,
like, and the Raptors.
The inverse of the Thunder supporting cast maybe not being up to par is that the Jazz's guys, like their frontline scorers, really kind of wilted down the stretch there. There's something Haley was saying. And I think that's the problem you have with this team. Yeah, they have the defense that can support them, sustain them for 3 wins in this series, but all of a sudden it gets into kind of a tit-for-tat sort of scoring fest, and they don't have a guy they can turn to. Mitchell tried to, and it just didn't seem like he had that edge to like go toe-to-toe with Russ.
Sounds a lot like the first game that we watched tonight, which was Pacers-Cavs, which is like a really cool, dynamic young team who has a lot of interesting players who are still early in their development, but at the end of the day, none of them are named LeBron.
Right, and if Victor Oladipo is having a rough game, like you can't turn to Miles Turner. His face at the end of the game was like, I can't believe I just witnessed that happening.
Right. I don't think anybody at the Q or anybody who were recently
even all
arrived
of LeBron's teammates were like, I can't believe I'm seeing this in person. This is amazing.
That was also, to me, and I don't mean to make this sound weird, the second most impressive thing he did tonight. Because the most impressive was that 360 pass
that was crazy.
he made that didn't result in a basket.
I thought you were going to say not get called for an obvious goaltend.
Yeah, which he sort of copped to.
Was it obvious, though?
A little bit. If you just review the play.
In replay, it was obvious. For sure.
I want to point out that in the press conference, he said, Yeah, it was definitely a goaltend.
Well,
he
they
literally
can say
said
that
so-
now because they won the game.
Yeah, exactly.
We were talking a little bit earlier. I want to get into that LeBron shot. We will talk about it. Actually, we're probably going to do. We're doing video now. We'll have the pod up tonight and then early tomorrow morning for East Coast people who are heading to work. But we'll talk very in depth about that shot because there were some really amazing little wrinkles to it. But on a macro level, what is our sort of investment in LeBron James? Does it distort whether the East is any good? I mean, this has only been 24 hours since the Sixers, so I think we have to take a step back here. But we were talking earlier about how the East is still LeBron and everyone else in terms of that kind of marquee eye-grabbing talent.
You're still hearing Jimmy, is what you're saying.
Oh, I am.
You're hearing me in your ears all the time. No, I mean, if anything, I walked away from that earlier game just thinking wow, the East is still pretty bad.
Yeah.
It took an epic LeBron performance, probably one of the best we've seen from him in years, to even bring that win back to the Cavs. And the Pacers on the other side, Victor Oladipo was pretty much shut down the entire night. A lot of these teams just don't have the frontline talent, so it seemed like the Sixers just stands out because they have a few guys, or a lot of these guys are just relying on just one person.
I will say across the board, nobody's really winning convincingly.
No.
Yeah.
No, really
who's the
not.
best team in the playoffs?
I mean,
The overall.
Watching them, you're like, that's the best team. Forget record, forget anything else.
The
I just
Sixers?
showed you
It's
tape.
tough.
I mean, the
because-
Sixers?
Sixers,
Yeah, it was
Pelicans
supposed
swept.
to be the Rockets, and
Yeah.
then it's like James Harden's having these weird start to games where we're like, this is what happened last year.
And the
when
Rockets
Stephen A.
don't-
thought you were drugged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Rockets don't burn your eyebrows off.
No.
You're not like, oh my
Yeah.
God. They scored 50 points in a quarter, and it was threes and foul shots. So you're just like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Wow, I didn't even notice they're up by 20.
Yeah.
You know, another reason I think that when we watched that Cavs game, we thought, okay, the East is really bad, is because everyone except LeBron on the Cavs is playing really poorly.
Right.
Remember, we looked at J.R. Smith had 0 points. He took 7 shots. How
Jose
many?
Calderon.
5 of them were threes.
Yeah.
Jose starting,
Yeah.
Kyle Korver starting. These are not guys we expected to be in the rotation
Yeah.
at this point in the
We
season,
thought
going
that
into the season.
they would mix in Hood, Hill.
Tristan.
Well, TT's just been wherever.
Yeah.
Clarkson and Nance, those guys are playing bit minutes. They're playing Fultz minutes, in second and third quarters to spell guys. And LeBron isn't even coming out for that much. And we were talking about this a little bit
44
earlier.
minutes tonight.
So let's talk a little bit about
Yeah.
this minutes thing, which is the shortening of the rotation in the playoffs that happens naturally every year. But then there are some coaches who still find creative ways to either alleviate some plus-minus stuff, where it's we cannot not have Russ on the floor. We can't, we're going to die if we have LeBron off the floor. But, the Sixers are playing a fair amount of guys, and they're loosening up, the rotation a little bit. Washington, Milwaukee, and especially Cleveland, they're just look, we got 5 dudes.
We have nothing else.
6 maybe, and this is it.
It's kind of funny because, when you look over at the Minnesota game and you see, Derrick Rose in, and they started the fourth quarter with, all reserves, which, is kind of weird for Tibbs. It's just, you guys are the team that's supposed to have this reputation. But instead, John Wall played the entire second half, which is ridiculous. He also played 44 minutes, and he was obviously very tired.
I think it's a function of just those teams just having much heavier expectations than the
Right,
Sixers.
yeah.
The Sixers are playing with house money.
Also, coaches maybe coaching for their jobs.
Yeah.
Well,
it's there's a Brooks, Tibbs. I'm not saying any of these guys are going to fire, but those guys are in much less strong positions than Pop, Kerr, maybe even Brett after the season. They could decide to clean house in Washington this year. You know what I mean? That's not out of the question.
I mean,
In the Sixers and Heat, there was much more of a chess match
Yeah.
than anything
Yes,
else. They had a
totally.
lot of pieces. Maybe a Tyler Johnson isn't on the level of some of the guys that the Sixers have, but there was a lot of mixing. Maybe a little bit. Well, maybe Dario.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mixing and matching and just someone going small and someone kind of trying to counter that. Whereas a lot of these teams, they really just have their base lineup, or like we said before, just one guy. You have a LeBron and that's it.
Can I ask a quick question? Just speaking of Tyler Johnson before I forget.
My guy caked up.
How intense would your work life have to be? How much would you have to love your job?
Okay.
That you would put off dental surgery?
I thought you were going to ask
Tyler
about the
Johnson
beard.
teeth is the second thing that propagates when you put Tyler Johnson.
Why aren't
into
we
the-
talking about this guy just being I'm just going to be a toothless vagrant for this entire series?
He does have $50 million.
There's got to be someone that could create some fronts for him down in Miami. That seems like a thing they do there.
We were talking about this before we went on air. the contracts that were doled out when the cap went up.
Yeah.
It's like the conversations
It's
you
the
have.
second night in Vegas.
It's like the second night in Vegas, the second hour of a Molly trip
Yeah.
when you're like, let's open a bar in the Caymans.
Yeah, but with
I'm gonna
the
write
Heat,
a
that
novel.
was different.
I'm gonna write a great American novel
Yeah.
down in the Caymans.
Not that any of us have
no,
done that.
you and me tonight. We're gonna write it
I'm
tonight.
gonna do it now.
Tyler Johnson is totally worth it.
$50 million. I love this kid.
We'll talk obviously like more as we go on about
Yeah.
the Thunder and the Cavs. I don't mean this is a bit. Any observations you want to share from Washington Raptors or Minnesota Houston?
Okay, this is kind of sort of related, kind of unrelated. I'm curious who you guys think is more on the hot seat, Brooks or Donovan?
Billy Donovan?
That's a tough one.
Yeah, what do you think, Donovan Mitchell?
Donovan Mitchell. Are we sure Donovan Mitchell can do it in the
Let's
big
get him
stage?
out of here.
Jason is not a big fan of Billy Donovan, and he's been expressing his
No, that's not true. I just don't think Billy Donovan.
Are you worried you're going to bump into Billy Donovan
No.
later?
Jason was looking up his contract details before he went on. I just want to.
He has 2 years left. I'll say this about Billy Donovan. I just don't like. Does he have the juice to be like, Russ, I'm going to bench you if you don't do this, or Melo, you have to like. I don't think he does, like institutionally, and I feel like his seat is hotter simply for the fact that the next step after either firing or not firing Donovan is like, is Sam Presti any good? So I feel like Sam Presti has to fire Donovan if they flame out, because the only other thing after that is people start asking, like, is Sam Presti any good?
Someone's
at
to
his job?
blame, yeah.
I just want more context, because we look at Scott Brooks and he's doing similar things with Washington that he did in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would like to see Billy Donovan in another team
Yeah.
setting that doesn't have Russ, where he has such an indomitable personality that kind of rules everything
The
and
Bulls,
like
for
kind of stops
example.
you. Yes, exactly. From like putting in your own system. Fred Hoiberg has done
Yeah.
pretty well with lesser guys
Yeah.
now that Jimmy Butler and some of the other guys are kind of out of there.
I would just, to be a fly on the wall for any of these situations of like, what's the difference between Hoiberg and Stevens? What's the difference between Spoelstra and Billy Donovan? And could any of these guys, if you switch them, walk up to Russ and be like, you play my way or we're going to trade you or whatever? And that's the big question, because everybody always says Billy Donovan has this elegant side-to-side offense, but they have Russ, and Russ is always going to be – the thing is that most teams in the NBA would rather have Russ than Billy Donovan.
You know what I think also plays into it is that Popovich is very much in control of that organization, whereas Russ is in control of the Thunder organization.
Well, he has all the leverage.
Right, exactly.
Nobody's coming to see Billy Donovan coach.
Yeah.
Paolo, did you have a tweet about Russ?
First of all, I just want to say for the record, if I had to blog, I would put off dental surgery. Just
Thanks, man.
just so you know.
I appreciate it.
But this is a question from Twitter. Justin says, not Justin Verrier, but just another Justin. What do you think
guy.
Russ liked more, the Thunder comeback or his stat line?
You guys are wilding, man.
I know.
You guys were
I know.
eating out of this dude's hands for years,
love
just
him.
like I did. And then all of a sudden, something happened.
Well, here's what happened. The team
And now you're like, oh, he's stat hunting. He's stat hunting. It's not, he's not stat hunting.
Now he has good teammates where the reason why
He won that game.
Yeah, but he lost a few of the other ones before. The reason why they're down in the first place is because of him. And now he has the help that everyone said he didn't have last year, which is why we all voted for him for MVP.
You've been dragging Melo for months.
That's very true.
They were
Melo is the thing that's going to say they got to emphasize Melo?
Well, Paul George
Melo was
specifically.
on the bench for that run.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Look, I just think that like, if you want to get real about it, I bet that we'd find a lot more stat hunting than we actually think is out there. It just so happens that Russ is egregious about the rebounds and stealing them from Steven Adams. But you're trying to tell me like Dame or Towns or any of these guys don't have incentives in their deals where it's like, freaking Ben Simmons might be
This
stat
is
hunting,
like,
man.
if you're the Patriots and like everybody's cheating, this is like you're basically doing the same thing essentially. Like everybody's stat hunting.
Yeah, but this is like, I am, but the Patriots were cheating. That's the difference. Let's do a little bit of NBA fact or fiction. Okay,
Sure.
so we have a couple of concepts, and you guys tell me, is it fact or is it fiction? And let's start with one that I have no real personal investment in. The Sixers are the best team in the East.
Oof.
Yeah, definitely.
You think they're the
100%.
favorites? That's fact.
Yeah, they are because never bet against LeBron, but they're so much more complete. And he's averaged this many minutes all season. Now he's playing 44, and he did what he did. Like, you can't keep this up. It's not sustainable. And this is the least he's ever had to work with. So he's having to do the most.
So he's going to go 6 or 7 against the Pacers, and then he's going to have to play Toronto probably. And probably go 6 against Toronto or 7 against Toronto, and then he gets Boston.
Toronto right now, the howls. I can hear them
Then
from
beat
Canada.
Washington, man. Like, just beat somebody.
I know.
Put them
I
out of
know.
their misery. Like, that's Washington team is begging to get their asses.
Catch it next on ESPN News.
Washington
6.
Raptors being relegated to ESPN News at 6 is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Jason, fact or
It's
fiction?
awful.
I just want to hear from you.
I think it's fact, but I'm not authoritative about it. I think the Sixers are the most dangerous team in the East for sure. Just because they're so young, they're so dangerous, and they have no pressure on them. They have no pressure on them. They don't care. They play so free and easy. And they never get tight because they're just like, we've already come so far.
They haven't gotten tight yet,
Yeah.
but I feel like the expectations are mounting. Whereas before it was all found money, like, we weren't even supposed to be in the playoffs
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
But now you have JoJo coming out and saying, well, we're on course to make the finals now. You have the whole Meek Mill thing. There's definitely a buzz around it that's creating...
Meek Mill has put more pressure on the
too much
Sixers.
pressure
My
now.
God.
Meek Mill is
That's
out.
your column. I expect that tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, he's out of prison. He needs something to go to do
Let
now.
me give you the reasons why this is a fact. I can't see anybody beating them 4 times in 7 games. They've lost once in 2 months. And you're talking about the top line talent that can win games. I mean, Ben and Joel are we're not talking about Oladipo and Miles Turner. We're not talking about Donovan and Ricky Rubio. We're talking about the frigging Magic Johnson and Hakeem Olajuwon.
I'm ready to move to the Caymans and open the bar. Let's go.
Fact or fiction, the Cavs will go as far as Ty Lue takes them.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here, and I'm going to say fiction, simply because I don't know what else he has to do here. He's basically playing the guys he has available.
Yeah.
George Hill, isn't available, and he might be, their 4th best player. Here are the guys that they
Kevin
did not...
Love doesn't have a thumb.
He only has 9 digits.
Yeah.
Here are the guys that they didn't play tonight. Ante Zizic,
Yeah.
Chetty Osman,
I love
Tristan
Chetty.
Thompson, Kendrick Pershing.
What
other guys are you
minutes
mixing?
on Nance, Clarkson, and Hood?
I don't have that box.
Nance, 18 minutes for Nance. 18 minutes for Nance. 20, a big 2-0 for my guy, Rodney Hood. Same for Jeff Green. Jordan Clarkson, 14 minutes. J.R. Smith, 0 points, 0 made field goals in 32 minutes,
Jesus.
0 free throws.
How many assists and rebounds?
Well, this is plus minus.
2, plus 2.
+2.
I don't understand.
He's a
stats.
positive.
Yeah.
No, I just don't know what other moves Ty Law has available to him.
Yeah,
He's basically just throwing whoever's out there, whoever's the hot hand at that point.
Cedi Osman should play.
What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Said he should play. LeBron loves him.
Yeah.
He needs to be ready to chest bump him when LeBron does something well.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
We'll talk about that. That was amazing. I think that it's fact in so much as when he does things puts Jeff Green back out in 4th quarters. I think that's coaching malfeasance.
That's crazy.
I think it's malpractice.
I don't think it's that much. I don't think it varies that much. I just don't think anything he's going to do matters that much.
If you guys have questions about Ty Lue and whether he is committing coaching malpractice, #RingerNBA. We're going to take questions at the end of the pod. Any comments, any questions you have for me, Jason, Haley, Justin. Okay, another fact or fiction. And this one was admittedly written when they were up by about 25 points.
Yeah.
The Jazz are the new Spurs.
Wow.
Yeah, it's hard for me to. At first, when I was watching it and they were up by that, I was like, fact. Quinn is the new Pop. Donovan is this new player is just gonna be in the system and support everything and be all about this team, even though they're in Utah. Maybe in 2 years.
2 years.
Maybe
They're
in 2
2 years
years.
away from being 2 years
Yeah, and
away.
I'm not even saying that they won't win the series. Honestly, I still think that they're gonna win the series.
I think the
But-
Spurs are the new Spurs. That's what I'll say.
Man.
This is incredible.
Good
The Spurs
stuff.
are too dramatic to be the Spurs now.
Which is an incredible thing to say. In
Yeah.
2018, the Spurs are a drama factory.
Well, I mean, but at the same time, they still made the playoffs. And if you look at the team that they put out there in the playoffs, it's just incredible that they were even able to hang. That last game was down to the wire, even though their 3rd leading scorer was Rudy Gay. Manu is 40, still keeping them in
Yeah.
these games. I mean, what they've done is low-key impressive.
whoever the next Spurs is they need to win 50 games for 10 years before anybody calls them the next Spurs.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that in terms of manufacturing dudes like Royce O'Neal, playing outside of a small market, and frankly, like surviving the exit of a franchise player, which I guess the Spurs never really had to grapple with, but never really added a franchise player either outside of anything but the draft.
Right.
It's really impressive. The last fact or fiction, we haven't really talked about this team in a while. Are the Warriors still the team to beat? The Warriors are still the team to beat. Is that fact or fiction?
Yeah, that's fact. I think we just forget about them. And something that Justin and I have been talking about lately is that also they're kind of in the background because it hasn't been as easy for them as it should have been. Like, they're definitely still the major threat, but it's just like, okay, you didn't sweep the Spurs. They don't even have Kawhi. Like you said, like, Manu's like a guy who's been bald for like a decade and a half, and you're still letting him like win games.
Wow!
Like, it's just like, okay, like, you guys should have swept them. Like, that much is clear, and it's just kind of like their entire season is, okay, like, all of a sudden, like, Steph quietly has had like 3 ankle injuries, and it's scary, and we don't even know if he's going to be back by the beginning of the next series. So nothing's really been easy for them. That being said, I mean, they still have Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
So they are still the team to beat.
They are the team to beat. It is a fact.
I mean, the Rockets kind of have an easier path.
Yeah.
Which is the other kind of
They don't have to
wrinkle
deal
here.
with Anthony Davis.
Right, yeah. I mean, the Pelicans, as we've been saying, might be the hottest team in the NBA right now, and they provide matchup problems for the Warriors, especially if Steph isn't going to be there. Whoever comes out of the Jazz Thunder series might have gone to 6-7 games now.
Yeah.
You wonder if the Thunder, as we've seen before, get into these sort of situations. If you see the Jazz, who just don't have the top level of talent to kind of keep up with a team like the Rockets, this could be a short series for the Rockets and creates an advantage for them.
Do you think that there's a little bit of March Madness going on in these playoffs where we're right on the precipice of Utah? We've got New Orleans in the next round. We could have Utah in the next round at the expense of Russ. That there could be a little bit of buyer's remorse. Like, you know how sometimes in the NCAA tournament, you're like, oh my God, the Cinderella teams. And then you're like, wait, Duke and Kansas and Kentucky are out? I'm not watching this anymore. Like, what happens if it's New Orleans versus Utah in the Western Conference Finals?
I honestly think that would be more exciting than some of the Eastern Conference matchups we could have.
Some wild Western Conference.
Yeah, because it's like, honestly, like, Paulo and I say this all the time, like, we find Utah very fun to watch. Donovan's super flashy. Joe Jingles. I mean, I think that they're very fun to watch.
Joey
Pelicans
Jangles.
are super fun to watch. The East, though, could have some really, really boring matchups.
I think the next round, it's really actually, and I say this with all sincerity, a shame that the Celtics are not closer to full strength.
Oh,
because
for sure.
I think it would have just made the Eastern Conference thing so much more exciting if it was Sixers versus Kyrie, and then LeBron versus a good Raptors team, and they were firing. They had Van Vliet, and they were coasting. And then there was some either LeBron versus Kyrie in the Eastern Conference Finals, Sixers like Ben Simmons versus LeBron. That would have been great.
Well, along with that dream, it'd be great if the Bucks were, coached by someone who could like actually turn their talent.
Didn't mix patterns.
What about Mr.
Joey
Hairgel?
Prunce?
You don't like Joe Prunce?
Joey Prunce?
Joe Prunce, he sold me a tempo in
Joey
1991.
Prunce?
It was amazing.
I guess the only good side of the East being so down is we get a team like the Sixers.
Yeah.
Like, in any other year, would they pop the way that they have? Like, this is kind of the give and take of it.
Yeah, like if Detroit had like kept it together and maybe had Blake for the whole season. Colin, do you have a factor?
I got a Rockets one. This is no shots at Sean Yu, but kind of shots at Sean Yu. Are the Rockets are soft, and we should be worried about them.
Whoa.
That they had a little bit of trouble at least with the Wolves, because we all thought it was going to be a sweep.
So fact or fiction, are the Rockets soft?
Yeah, I'm somewhere in between. It's very troubling to me, the starts that James Harden had.
Well, the team they probably don't want to face now is the Jazz. Like, they're probably rooting for Russ and all those guys more than anyone, simply because you have Rudy Gobert and Derek Favors, one of the biggest front lines in the league, who are going to bash Clint Capella and Luke Richard. God, I can't say his name. Luke Richard Mbamute might not be available for that series, and it kind of throws them off.
I think that while I wouldn't go so far as to call the Rockets soft, it is notable that the 3 major figures in that team have never gotten it done. That's all I'm saying.
That's why
James Harden disappeared in Game 6 in shocking fashion. Chris Paul never been doing conference finals, and Mike D'Antoni.
Yeah, is like
Mike D'Antoni.
is like
Yeah.
wakes up every day smiling that he didn't have to see Popovich
Right,
in the
yes.
first round.
You know, honestly, though, it is kind of hard to call a team soft who, like, can drive through to the rim like that. and
Yeah,
draw
they scored
fouls
50
like
points
that.
in a quarter.
Yeah.
I think the issue with them is they seem like a team that's best when they're like coasting downhill, and we haven't seen them get tripped up yet. Like there's not a lot of pedaling uphill with Houston. They don't fight through it. They pour on these 30-point runs, and you're just like, well, I guess that's just where the game's over. But you haven't seen them in this like dogfight yet,
Yeah,
and that'll come. Speaking of these kinds of like obstacles that teams have, let's talk a little bit about what kryptonite some of these playoff teams might face. Like, what's the thing that could undo one of these teams? What is it about? What is it for Houston? Is it a physical team? Is it a team with a big front line? Like, what's their kryptonite?
Yeah, I think it's that, and I think it's what you were alluding to before, just any slight adversity.
Yeah,
Seems like earlier in that first round series with the Wolves, when things got a little tight, you started to worry about guys like Chris Paul, and like in that game 1 where it went down to the wire because they threw away the ball at the end there. I do wonder if they get into those sort of situations, if that history is going to start to mount, especially with guys like Chris, especially with guys like James Harden.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's how a series is refed. Also, I think just because of like the way their strategy of relying so much on free throws and threes. So like you'll see the refs play outside.
They have like a reverse Bad Boys thing.
Yeah.
The Bad Boys used to be like, you can't call everything, so we're just going to foul the shit out of you every play. The Rockets are like, we're going to hunt for a foul on every shot, and you're going to have to call some of them.
Right.
It's kind of so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. We saw a little bit of this tonight with Jamal Crawford kind of like slamming into Chris Paul, standing over him.
That was
I'm sure
great.
that they squashed
Stepping
that.
over him.
Nobody likes Chris Paul, not even like his boys from his old teams.
Well, here's the thing. Is Chris Paul, can you put him on tilt? If you get in his head, if you take him out of the game a little bit, don't you think, like, Paolo, I mean, we've seen over the years, like people can get under Chris Paul's skin.
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to the Jazz or the Thunder. Like, I feel like both teams could do that in the next round. Maybe more so the Thunder, given how, crazy Russ is. But I think, like, if you want to kind of nitpick the Rockets, I feel like that's the one thing you could be like, that's something that you could throw them off their game, getting Chris Paul agitated.
Bring
in
the
some
ghost
way.
up, man.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
like be like, yo, you guys got to prove it.
You
It's
haven't
like,
made
we're
it
gonna
to the
freak you
conference
out
final.
and see if you have the steal for it. The team who I think you would expect, because they're so young, to have a similar problem, but based on the fact that they squared off with a like MMA black belt fighter this week, it's like the Sixers didn't wilt.
Yeah.
Like that last Miami game, they were like, let's slap Ben Simmons in the head, let's undercut him in the first 2 minutes. Every foul is going to be as hard as possible. We're throwing Bellinelli into the stands, and I'm sure all the Miami fans out there would probably be like, well, there was this and this and this. But the Sixers didn't seem to be like fazed at all by that situation. So what do you think their kryptonite is? Like, Jason, can you think of like, aside from like stepping on Embiid's mask?
I mean, just health. Like can Embiid keep this up? Can he play this type of minutes? What happens when somebody's like, well, what if I elbow Embiid in the face through his mask? Let's just see. Like, does that
I'm
happen?
trying to think of which Celtic
I know, I'm
would
like,
do
if
that.
that didn't happen with Miami, I'm not sure that that's going to happen.
Yeah,
I agree,
that.
but I'm just saying, like I really think it's health.
Yeah.
Just so you look at their lineup, it's health.
Yeah, because if Joe's not out there or Ben isn't out there for one of those
Falls
games
apart.
against kind of more of an upper-level team, like the Cavs, for instance,
Uh-huh.
I do wonder if they could pull off the same thing. Because my kryptonite that I wrote down was talent and experience. A team that not only has some of the horses to go up against some of those frontline guys that the Sixers have, but they also have the playoff experience that they can lean to. Whereas the Heat, they kind of had one or the other.
Yeah.
Wade obviously has been there before, but he just doesn't have the same juice to do that throughout.
Miami beat them
games.
one time with Wade having the game of the season. Yeah. So yeah, it'll be interesting. The thing that's funny though, when you say that, is if the Sixers face Boston next week, they'll have a similar job that they did with Miami. They're not going to know. Boston does such a good job of throwing these different combos of people at you. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, it's like this one guy we're concentrating on, right?
The thing that Boston, the edge that Boston would have, if you could call it an edge against a potential Sixers series, is just they can throw multiple bodies like at the Sixers' top players.
Yeah, they have guys who are.
They can just give them looks.
What team are you most worried about?
Yeah.
For the Sixers?
Yeah.
The Warriors.
The 86 Celtics. when they enter into basketball Valhalla and they only play all-time games. I think it's like LeBron. LeBron's been in the finals 7 times. I'm worried about LeBron just being like, F no, this is still my run. What do you think about, you joke about the Warriors, like, the Warriors seem to have been waiting to be properly motivated. It's
got to be Steph.
Steph not coming
100%.
back? Is the kryptonite?
Yeah, or, I mean, even if he comes back and he's not 100%. I mean, this is the ankle injury. You know, I'm surprised people aren't putting more gravity on this issue. This was the ankle that almost, ruined his career. So there's no, I mean, if it's taking this long, there's no telling if, they're like, okay, it'd be really good if you could just come back as soon as possible. Obviously, it's the playoffs. So if he comes back and he's not 100%, you know what I mean? That's...
I just wonder what they're going to do when they don't have the best player in the series. Because we saw when they lost that finals.
Do you think Anthony Davis is right now playing better than Kevin Durant?
You think Anthony Davis is better than Kevin Durant?
I think right now he's playing better than Kevin Durant.
I would love to hear what the people think about that. Hashtag Ringer NBA.
You know what? He's definitely, the mentality is definitely stronger than Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is not the aggressor.
AD is a top 3 offensive player. He's a top 3 defensive player.
Would you make the argument that Kevin Durant is a top 2 offensive player and a top 5 defensive player?
So what is the aggregate?
I think Kevin Durant is Ricky Davis.
Kevin Durant is. Oh wow, that is a look.
Russell Westbrook wearing all black and a platinum chain and sunglasses.
And a mirror for sunglasses.
Seems really very happy to be talking to the media. Yeah. No, this is a good argument to be having. Do you think that the best player in the series with Rondo and Drew outweighs Kevin with Clay and Draymond?
It could. And I think the problem is when you don't have stuff, you just don't have those insurmountable numbers of those type of guys. When all 5 of the best Warriors are on the court, it's just almost impossible. Throughout history, we maybe don't have a lineup to counterbalance that. But when he's not out there, he changes what they do a lot. And now maybe you're playing Iguodala like they did in the first round at point guard, and it changes things up. It makes it easier for the Pelicans to play a guy like Rondo, a non-shooter, and makes it easier for them to go a little bit smaller in the backcourt and maybe try to create an advantage by being smaller than the Warriors, being in a death lineup in the way that the Warriors actually can't match up with.
The death lineup now is actually Ilyasova, Bellinelli, Simmons, Redick, and Covington. Does this Warriors team have that Pistons after we won the finals vibe? That some of those teams that we've seen over the last 15 years where you're like, are you a little bit bored with doing this as a group? Or do you think that, because the Durant thing was supposed to be this infusion.
Yeah.
I think that the question about whether or not they're mentally engaged has been asked a lot, and I think they've been forced to answer that question, and hence it has become a storyline.
Well, Steve Kerr commented on it and made it a storyline.
Yes. I think that, but that felt almost like it was challenging. It would be these guys are still having an amazing season, considering the fact that Durant and West and Curry have missed time, and Draymond's having an off season. And he was but it's them. It's them not getting, doing the right things every night.
Well, I think, that narrative has kind of always been around Curry.
Right.
It's just a dude who's super talented and doesn't need to throw the behind the back pass all the time, but kind of does because he zones out.
Right.
I think that's just the nature of that team and those guys. They're just super, super, super talented. They can score anytime they want, so they kind of zone out sometimes. I'm not sure that that's an all the way bad thing. That's a good.
It's a good thing for the NBA because we get to see the Warriors in a competitive series.
And plus, they have that's part of why Draymond is so important to that team. He's the one guy that's hey, I'm gonna talk a lot of shit, so you guys better back me up.
Yeah, but he's arguably also their kryptonite.
Oh,
always,
for sure.
Yeah.
So he, as much as he does, he's also a risk.
Pal, did you have any kryptonites you wanted to throw out there for these teams or any of the teams that are remaining?
Just going back to the Sixers for a little bit, I was looking at...
By all means.
Yeah, I was looking at their schedule both through the end of the season.
I have a response to this, but go ahead.
But you know where I'm going with this.
That they beat up on bad teams.
They did, but also I just don't think... I think you're making the Heat out to be something greater than they actually were, and I do think the wins were impressive. I don't think they've played a good team yet.
I hear you. I respect you.
And that automatically means you don't, but I'll take it.
No, both of those things are true. I think that the sustained amount of excellence that they've been putting forward, this run, outpaces any but they were beating up on the Mavericks and the Magic and the Hawks. I mean, nobody wins this many games in the NBA or is not good. When the Heat or the Warriors go on runs, we're not like, well, but they were beating lesser talent. At a certain point, almost every team is a lesser talent, right?
But they've actually won stuff.
I'm not saying that the Sixers should have a premature parade down Broad Street. I'm just saying that show me a team that's gonna beat them. They were also They beat the Cavs in that run. They've beaten the Rockets.
They beat the Cavs handily.
Yeah.
I also think that compared to a lot of the Eastern Conference teams that we've been watching, the Heat were, fierce competitors.
Yeah. I watch these games, man. Does anybody did the
Are you calling me a
I'm not
blog boy
calling
over
you a
here?
blog boy. I'm just saying, you're telling me that the Pacers look better than the Sixers or the Cavs look better than the Sixers? The Sixers are playing physically on a different level than the Cavs. The Cavs are hopefully Kyle Korver can bail us out if LeBron is sub superhuman.
Yeah.
That's fair. No, it's a fair.
I will say that teams. The thing about the Sixers is they have a play style, and it fits their players, and the coach is totally aligned with what the players want to do and how they want to play, and they have a system that works. And that's not a thing that you can say for every
Cleveland.
team in the East.
Yeah.
Cleveland is basically LeBron, save us, please,
Right.
every night.
Right.
Every second that they're out there. I mean, and the Bucks are looking for a thing that will work on a consistent basis. The Celtics are decimated.
And why are we talking
know.
about the number one seed in the East?
And the Raptors?
It can't just be what is it? Let's actually interrogate it. Why do we always just shy away from talking about this team?
There's just no central tension there that's
Yeah.
new. We've been doing this for 4 years now.
With the yeah.
And I also
Well,
find
Raptors fans would say you've been ignoring them for 4 years. It's not like you guys spent all your Raptors headlines.
Well, I was just banging out Pelicans news just for
That's
a while,
right.
so I
That's
didn't
right.
have time to do it. No, and as we've seen in this postseason, we're kind of true, and I also don't like the backlash to that backlash because it's oh, you guys just don't watch. You don't,
Yeah,
you don't know real basketball. Which my counter to that is fuck y'all.
I just think, it's the best Raptors team in the franchise's history, fine. I need to see you win a series that matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I need to see you win a first round series in authoritative
Convincingly.
fashion.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but we need to see it. We need to see it
Yeah.
happen once.
Honestly, because they could very well. They're not going to, obviously, they can't be swept, but they could very well be just like the Blazers, where we were like, oh my God, they're so different, they're a step up, but then it's in the playoffs, they're so underwhelming. And I'm not saying they happen so far, but you could easily see them
2-2 against the
performing like
Wizards.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2-2 against the Wizards, who hated each other as recently as 5 minutes ago, and look on the verge of falling apart at any given moment.
Right.
Really quick before we go, I do want to do just some exit interviews, one-line exit interviews. You guys have been pounding away on these. Basically, as soon as a team gets eliminated from the playoffs, Haley or Paolo writes what basically their season meant and what they have to do going forward. So let's talk about just a couple of the eliminated teams. San Antonio Spurs exit interview. What do you guys think is next for the Spurs? Obviously, the Kawhi question mark is enormous.
Yeah.
Not even setting Kawhi aside, because it just would change the next 10 years of this franchise if they trade him. What do you see for the Spurs right now?
I think obviously the Kawhi thing is tied to this, but I think the coaching question is interesting because all of their assistants are being rumored in a bunch of to a bunch of different jobs.
Yeah.
So it's okay, if that is having such a turnover, what does that mean for Pop, and what does that mean for the direction of the franchise too in terms of rebuilding or re-upping or whatever they choose to do? I think that's also a big question.
Yeah, his time at San Antonio was supposed to be unofficially tied to this Kawhi window.
Yeah.
I think he got to the end of the Manu, Paul, Tim, and Tony, Manu, and Tim thing, and people were like, "Oh, is Pop gonna retire? He's 68. Maybe he'll just go coach Team USA." And then it was but Kawhi gives them this window, and that does impact things a little bit. I think.
The other thing is also all of his assistants are getting interviews now.
Yeah.
And so I wonder not only are those guys liable to leave, but what other guys are able to kind of leak out of this team and start to go form
They're about
their
to
own
lose
sort of-
3 or 4 guys from their bench too.
Right.
Give me a quick Wolves exit interview.
Well, I mean, I think that it might be a little premature to think that Tibbs is on the hot seat.
But would you call this season a success?
You know, I was as recent as like when they beat Denver and it was like super exciting. I was like, okay, they're in the playoffs, like that's enough. But honestly, it's kind of tough. All the glory goes away when you get your ass kicked in a historic 50-point third quarter. Yep. So I think that in the end it actually wasn't, and I think now they're kind of realizing that they're a little bit stuck in the mud. You know, they have these 3 guys that they were supposed to build this team on, and this summer Butler's up for an extension, so if they offer him the max and they offer Carl the rookie max extension,
they'll be in a Thunder situation where they have 3 guys making all the money.
And the sucky thing is, I mean, obviously they have to do it with Cat. I'm not sure about Butler because by the time that extension would start, he'd be 30. So I'm not sure if that's
also,
the move.
Butler gets hurt a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And the
Butler didn't play in the at least the fourth quarter tonight.
No, and also he had that stretch where he was hurt this season. And the problem is that they're already locked into the one guy who they should have, out of the 3,
Wiggins.
let go of. Yeah.
That's the big question. Can you trade Wiggins at this point? And at that point, for what?
There's a lot of toxic assets this summer.
Right.
There's guys like, not toxic in terms of their personalities, but guys who I'm just like, I have no idea what the market for Whiteside could be. Did you throw out the Kings? Somebody threw out the Kings earlier. I was like, the Kings can't be that stupid.
They need another center, like really bad.
That was you? But like, that's the thing is that like you're not wrong. And maybe you could talk Cuban when he strikes out on every free agent again into going for him or something like that.
Yeah.
But what are we talking about?
Yeah, see, you got a Nerlens Noel. Can I interest you in a Hassan Whiteside?
Yeah. And who's the Nets that you're going to dump all this on? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Who's the Nets of like this summer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. All right, we're going to go on to our mailbag now. So we're going to answer some of your questions. And Paolo, you're going to ask questions.
Let's do it. Okay, so first one from Twitter, Vance Williams asks, would Houston-Philly be the ultimate Rap City NBA Finals?
Rap City as in like BET's Rap City? Mm-hmm. That's a really good question.
Great question.
I mean, Brooklyn versus like a New York Brooklyn Eastern Conference series would be the ultimate Rap City one, or an Atlanta New York Eastern Conference Finals. But Houston-Philly has it would be Morey with the ghost of Hinkie. It would be a lot of there's a couple of players that have been traded back and forth in that Houston situation.
Oh, Warriors too, the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty big.
Yeah,
Dame Dawa himself is from
true.
the Bay Area.
Toronto Drake.
Drake
won't stop talking to John Wall, and it's just like when they mic him up or the mic is close to him and you hear Drake's voice, I'm like, it's not a great shit-talking voice.
No.
It's not that intense.
Shout out to Drake's Star Trek windbreaker today. What's the next question you got?
All right, next one from Periscope at Handsome Cheetah wants to know,
What's up, my guy?
who looks more like a 1980s mobbed up lawyer? Joe Prunty or Billy Donovan?
Joey Prunes.
Quinn Snyder.
Joey Prunes.
Wow, Joey Prunes. Can we please start calling him that?
Joey Prunes.
I mean, Thibs also has to be in there.
This is a deep class.
He's definitely underboss material.
What do you think? Prunty, is he like... Prunty's the accountant who gets
Prunty's
shot
the
in the
Prunty's
first
the
20
accountant.
minutes of a mob.
Prunty's the accountant who loses the book.
Yeah.
That has all the figures in it.
Billy Donovan, the Count Chocula hair is not that mafia to me. I don't know.
He needs to take it low. I've been saying that for a while.
And Tibbs is just like Wire season 2. He's just like on the docks.
That's good.
What's the next one?
So from Periscope, Adam Frizzell, would you rather have Carmelo Anthony on your team or drink a gallon of Arby's sauce?
A gallon?
Yeah.
A gallon is too much.
Yeah.
I've had Mello on my team,
No,
so I guess I would drink.
What's, like, the
So
limit
I'm
for you?
drinking the Arby's. I've had it. I've seen Mello on my team. It's a tough look. It's fine sometimes, very rarely, and then the rest of the time it's
Would
bad.
you describe the arc of your Melo fandom? What was the most hopeful you ever was?
When I thought that Jackson was going to really make him take a pay cut. When I thought
the height of your Melo fandom also involved with him giving up money.
Yeah, I thought when I really thought, wow, Phil Jackson's going to be like, do you want to win or do you want to make money? And that I thought that Melo would really be like, yeah, let's put a team together. Put a team together. I'm going to take a pay cut. Let's really assemble this squad and let's make a run at it. And then it was like, it's $5 million less than the max.
You guys are wilding.
Shout out to him opting in this summer.
He's going to opt in.
What's the Chris Rock line? Like that Tiger went Tiger?
Yeah, I know.
Melo is just Melo, man.
I know.
Melo's not trying. It's not the poison pill. What's the next one?
Okay, so next one from Twitter at Colt_Gerties.
Are you reading these Twitter names before you say them? Because I feel like you're like.
No, I'm definitely not. I probably should.
Yeah.
But you know what? It is what it is. What Game of Thrones character would you compare to Round 1 Ben Simmons?
Ha! It is round 1. So he's Robb Stark. He's winning a lot of battles, but we need to see.
That's good.
Let's see.
You think he's Robb Stark?
I mean, does this guy make it to season 3? Let's see.
What could happen to him? Do you know something I don't know?
I'm just saying.
With that level of mystery, I think we will wrap it up there. For Haley, Jason, Justin, Paolo, Shocker, Keith, everybody in the booth, thank you for hanging out with us on a nice Wednesday night of NBA basketball. Thunder forever.
Ha!
Do you guys want us to do the LeBron thing separately?